What the fuck is up? It is day 78 of reading every single day for the rest of my life. For 30 minutes every single day. I have the Fellowship of the Ring. I am at the middle of page 393. Day 78. Let's go! Now the lady arose, and Celeborn led them back to the height. A yellow noon lay on the green land of the tongue, and the water glittered with silver. All at last was made ready. The company took their places in the boats as before, crying farewell. The elves of Lorien, with long grey poles, thrust them out into the following stream, and the rippling waters bore them away slowly. The travelers sat still without moving or speaking. On the green bank near the very point of the tongue of the Lady Gillandrel stood alone and silent. As they passed her, they turned, and their eyes watched her slowly floating away from them. For so it seemed to them Lorien was slipping backward, like a bright ship masted with enchanted trees, sailing on to the forgotten shores, while they sat helpless upon the margin of the grey and leafless world. Here, I'm gonna put a timer on. Sorry. Okay. Here we go. Even as they gazed, the Silverlord passed out to the currents of the great river, and their boats turned and began southward. Soon the white form of the lady was small and distant. She shone like a window of glass upon a far hill in the westering sun, or as a remote lake seen from a mountain, a crystal fallen in the lap of the land. Then it seemed to Frodo that she lifted her arms in a final farewell, and far but piercing clear on the following wind came to the sound of her voice singing. But now she sang in the ancient tongue of the elves beyond the sea, and he did not understand the words. Fair was the music, but it did not comfort him. Yes, as is the way of elvish words, they remained graven in his memory, and long after he interpreted them as well as he could. The language was that of elven song, and spoke of things little known of Middle Earth. Ah, Larry Lanter la Swin. I can't read any of that. Ah, like the gold fall the leaves of the wind, long years numberless as the wings of trees. The years have passed like swift draughts of the sweet mead and lofty halls beyond the west, beneath the blue vaults of Varda, wherein the stars tremble in the song of her voice holy and queenly. Who now shall refill the cup for me? For now the kindler, Varda, the queen of stars from Mount Everwhite, has uplifted her hands like clouds, and all paths are drowned deep in the shadow. And out of a grey country darkness lies in the foaming waves between us, and mist covers the jewels of Kalesera forever. Now lost to those from east to Valamir. Farewell, maybe thou shalt find Valamir. Maybe even thou shalt find it. Farewell. Varda is the name of that lady whom the elves in these lands of exile name Elbereth. Suddenly the river swept round a bend, and banks rose upon either side, and the light of Lorien was hidden. To that fair land Frodo never came again. The travelers now turned their faces to the journey. The sun was before them, and their eyes dazzled, for all were filled with tears. Gimli went openly. I have looked that last upon that which was fairest, he said to Legolas his companion. Henceforward I will call nothing fair unless it be her gift. He put his hand to his breast. Tell me, Legolas, why did I come on this quest? Little did I know where the chief peril lay. Truly Elrond spoke, saying that we could not foresee what we might meet upon our road. Torment in the dark was danger that I feared, and it did not hold me back. But I would not have come had I known the danger of light and joy. Now I have taken my worst wound in this parting, even if I were to go in this night straight to the Dark Lord. Alas for Gimli, son of Gloin. Nay, said Legolas, alas for us all, and for all that walk the world in these after days. For such is the way of it, to find and lose. as it seems to those whose boat is on the running stream. But I count you blessed, Gimli, son of Gloin, for your loss you suffer of your own free will, and you might have chosen otherwise, but you have not forsaken your companions, and the least reward that you shall have is that the memory of Lothlorien shall remain ever clear and unsustained in your heart, and shall neither fade nor grow stale. Maybe, said Gimli, and thank you for your words, true words doubtless, yet all such comfort is cold. Memory is not what the heart desires, that is only a mirror, but it is clear as Khaled Zarham, or says the heart of Gimli the dwarf. Elves may see things otherwise. Indeed, I have heard that for them memory is more like the waking world than to a dream. Not so for dwarves. Not so for dwarves. But let us talk no more of it. Look to the boat. She is too low in the water with all this baggage, and the great river is swift. I do not wish to drown my grief in cold water. He took up a paddle and steered towards the western bank, following Aragorn's boat ahead, which has already moved out of the middle stream. So the company went on their way, down the wide, hurrying waters, borne ever southwards. Bare woods stalked along either bank, and they could not see any glimpse of the lands behind. The breeze died away, and the river flowed without a sound. No voice of bird broke the silence. The sun grew misty as the day grew old, until it gleamed in a pale sky like a high white pearl. Then it faded. Then it faded into the west, and dusk came early, followed by a gray and starless night. Far into the dark, quiet hours they floated on, guiding their boats under the overhanging shadows of the western woods. Great trees passed like the ghost, thrusting their twisted, thirsty roots through the mist down the water. It was dreary and cold. Frodo sat and listened to the faint lap and gurgle of the river fretting among the tree roots, and drifted near the shore, until his head nodded and he fell into an uneasy sleep. Chapter 9. The Great River. I'm excited. Frodo was roused by Sam. He found that he was lying, well wrapped, under tall gray-skinned trees in a quiet corner of the woodlands in the west bank of the great river, Anduin. He found that he was lying, well wrapped, under tall gray-skinned trees in a quiet corner of the woodlands on the west bank of the great river, Anduin. He had slept the night away, and the gray of the morning was dim among the bare branches. Gimli was busy with a small fire near at hand. They started again before the day was broad. Not that most of the company were eager to hurry southwards, they were content that the decision which they must make at least, when they came to Rhuers and the Tindlock Isle, still lay some days ahead, and they let the river bear them on at its own pace, having no desire to hasten towards the perils that lay beyond. Whichever course they took in the end, Aragorn let them drift with the stream as they wished, husbanding their strengths against weariness to come. But he insisted that at least they should start early each day and journey on far into the evening, for he felt in his heart and time was pressing, and he feared that the Dark Lord has not been idle while they lingered in Lorien. None the less, they saw no sign of an enemy that day nor the next. The dull gray hours passed without event. As the third day of their voyage wore on, the lands changed slowly. The trees thinned and then failed together. On the eastern bank, on their left, they saw long, formless slopes stretching up and away towards the sky. Brown and withered, they looked as if fire had passed over them, leaving no living blade of green, an unfriendly waste, without even a broken tree or a bold stone to relieve the emptiness. They had come to the brown lands that lay vast and desolate, between southern Mirkwood and the hills of the Emyn Muil. What pestilence over war, dread of deed of the enemy has so blasted all that region, even Aragorn couldn't tell. Upon the west to the right, the land was treeless, also, but it was flat, and in many places green and wide plains of grass. On the side of the river they passed forests of great reeds, so tall that they shut out all the view to the west. as the little boats went rustling by along their fluttering borders. Their dark, withered plumes bent and tossed in the light, cold airs, hissing softly and sadly. Here and there, through openings, Frodo could catch sudden glimpses of rolling meads, and far beyond them, hills in the sunset, and away in the edge of a sight. And away on the edge of sight, a dark line where marched the southernmost ranks of the Misty Mountains. There was no sign of living, moving things, save birds. On these there were many, small fowl whistling and piping on the reeds, but they were seldom seen. Once or twice the travelers heard the rush and swine of swan's wings, and looking up they saw a great phalanx screaming along the sky. "Swans," said Sam, "and mighty big ones, too." "Yes," said Aragorn, "and they are black swans." "How wide and empty and mournful all this country looks," said Frodo. "I always imagined that as one journeyed south it got warmer and merrier, until winter was left behind forever." "But we have not journeyed far south yet," answered Aragorn. "It is still winter, but we are far from the sea. Here the world is cold until the sudden spring, and we may yet have snow again. Far away down in the Bay of Belfalis, to watch Anduin runs, it was warm and merry, maybe, or it would be for the enemy. But here we are not above 60 leagues, I guess, south of the Southfarthing away in your shire. Hundreds of long miles yonder. You are looking now southwest across the north plains of Riddenmark, Rohan, the land of the horse lords. Ere long we shall come to the mouth of the Limelight that runs down the Fangorn to join the river. That is the north boundary of Rohan, and of old all that lay between Limelight and the White Mountains belonged to the Rohirrim. It is a rich and pleasant land, and in its grass has no rival, but in these evil days folks do not dwell by the river or ride often to its shores. Anduin is wide, yet the orcs can shoot their arrows far across the stream, and of late it is said that they have dared to cross the water and raid the herds and studs of Rohan. Sam looked from bank to bank uneasily. The trees had seemed hostile before, as if harbored secret eyes and lurking dangers. Now he wished that the trees were still there. He felt that the company was too naked, afloat a little open boats to the midst of the shelterless lands, and on a river that was the frontier of war. And the next day or two, as they went on, board steadily southwards, of this feeling of insecurity grew on all the company. For a whole day they took to their paddles and hastened forward. The banks slid by. Soon the river broadened and grew more shallow. Long stony beaches lay upon the east, and there were gravel shoals in the water, so that careful steering was needed. The brown lands rose into the bleak wolds, over which flowed a chill air from the east. On the other side, the meads had become rolling downs of withered grass amidst a land of fen and tussock. Frodo shivered, thinking of the lawns and fountains, the clear sun and gentle rains of Thorin. There was little speech and no laughter in any of the boats. Each of the member of the company was busy with his own thoughts. The heart of Legolas was running under the stars of summer night in some northern glade amid the beech woods. Gimli was fingering gold in his mind and wondering if it was fit to be wrought into the housing of the lady's gift. Merry and Pippin in the middle boat were ill at ease, but Boromir sat muttering to himself, sometimes biting his nails as if restlessness or doubt consumed him, sometimes seizing a paddle of driving the boat close behind Aragorn's. Then Pippin, who sat in the boat looking back, caught a queer gleam into his eye as he peered forward, gazing at Frodo. Sam had long ago made up his mind that, though boats were maybe not as dangerous as he had been brought up to believe, they were far more uncomfortable than he had ever imagined. He was cramped and miserable, having nothing to do but stare at the winter lands crawling by the gray water on either side of him. Even the paddles were in use. They did not trust Sam with one. At dusk drew down on the fourth day. He was looking back over the bowed heads of Frodo and Aragorn and the following boats. He was drowsy and longed for camp and the feel of earth under his toes. Suddenly something caught his sight. At first he stared at the listlessly Then he sat up and rubbed his eyes, but when he looked again he could not see it any more. That night they camped on a small eyot close to the western bank. Sam lay rolled in blankets beside Frodo. I had a funny dream an hour or two before we stopped. Mr. Frodo, he said, or maybe it wasn't a dream. Funny it was anyway. Well, what was it? Said Frodo, knowing that Sam would not settle down until he had told his tale, whatever it was. My God, I'm so tired. Okay. That night they camped on a small eyot close to the western bank. Sam lay rolled in blankets beside Frodo. I had a funny dream an hour or two before we stopped, Mr. Frodo, he said. Or maybe it wasn't a dream. Funny. Funny it was anyway. Well, what was it? Said Frodo, knowing that Sam would not settle down until he had told his tale, whatever it was. I haven't seen or thought of anything to make me smile since we left Lothlorien. It wasn't funny that way, Mr. Frodo. It was queer. All wrongs, if it wasn't a dream, and you had best hear it. It was like this. I saw a log with eyes. The log's all right, said Frodo. There are many in the river, but leave out the eyes. That I won't, said Sam. 'Twas the eyes that made me sit up, so to speak. I saw what I took to be a log floating along in the half-light beyond Gimli's boat, but I didn't give much heed to it. Then it seemed as if the log was slowly catching up, and it was peculiar, as you might say, seeing as we were all floating down in the stream together. Just then I saw the eyes, two pale sort of points, shiny-like, on a hump at near end of the log. What's more, it wasn't a log, for it had paddle feet, like a swan's almost, only they seemed bigger, and it kept digging in and out of the water. That's when I sat right up and rubbed my eyes, meaning to give a shout if it was still there when I had rubbed the dows of my head, for whatever it was coming along now fast, and getting close behind Gimli. But whatever those two lamps spotted me moving and staring, or whatever I came to my senses, I don't know. When I looked again, it wasn't there, yet I think I caught a glimpse, with the tail of my eye, as the saying is, of something dark shooting under the shadow of the bank. I couldn't see no more eyes. Though. I said to myself, dreaming again, Sam Gamgee, I said, and I said no more just then, but I've been thinking since. What do you make of it, Mr. Frodo? I should make nothing of it, but a log in the dusk of sleep in your eyes, Sam, said Frodo. If this was the first time that those eyes had been seen, but it isn't. I saw them away back north before we reached Lorien, and I saw a strange creature with eyes climbing to Flet that night. Halder saw it too. And do you remember the report of the elves that went under the orc band? Ah, said Sam, I do, and remember more too. I don't like my thoughts, but thinking of one thing and another. In Mr. Bilbo's story and all, I fancy I could put a name on the creature at a guess. A nasty name. Gollum, maybe? Yes, that is what I have feared for some time, said Frodo. Ever since the night on the Flet, I supposed he was lurking in Moria, and picked up our trail. Then I hoped that our stay in Lorien would throw him off the scent again. The miserable creature must have been hiding in the woods by the Silverlord, watching us start off. That's about it, said Sam. And we'd better be a bit more watchful ourselves, or we'll feel some nasty fingers round our necks one of these nights, if we ever wake up to feel anything. And that's what I was leading up to. No need to trouble Strider or the others tonight. I'll keep watch. I can sleep tomorrow, being no more than luggage in the boat, as you might say. I might, said Frodo, and I might say luggage with eyes. You shall watch, but only if you promise to wake me halfway towards morning, if nothing happens before then. In the dead hours, Frodo came out of a deep, dark sleep to find Sam shaking him. It's a shame to wake you, whispered Sam. But that's what you said. There's nothing to tell, or not much, I thought. I heard some soft splashing and a sniffing noise, a while back, but a lot of such queer sounds by a river at night. He lay down and Frodo sat up, huddled in his blankets, and fought off his sleep. Minutes or hours passed slowly and nothing happened. Frodo was just yielding to the temptation to lie down again when a dark shape, hardly visible, floated close to one of the moored boats. A long, whitish hand could be dimly seen as it shot out and grabbed the gunwale. Two pale, lamp-like eyes shone coldly as they peered inside, and then they lifted and gazed up at Frodo on the eyot. They were not more than a yard or two away, and Frodo heard the soft hiss of intaken breath. He stood up, drawing Sting from his sheath, and faced the eyes. Immediately their light was shut off. There was another hiss and a splash, and the dark log shape shot away downstream into the night. Aragorn stirred in his sleep, turned over, and sat up. What is it? He whispered, springing up, coming to Frodo. I felt something in my sleep. Why have you drawn your sword? Gollum, answered Frodo, or at least so I guess. Ah, said Aragorn, so you know about our little footpad, do you? He padded us all the way through Moria and right down to Nimrodel. Since we took to boats, he had been lying on a log and paddling with hands and feet. I have tried to catch him once or twice at night, but he is slyer than a fox and as slippery as a fish. I hoped the river voyage would beat him, but he is too clever a waterman. We shall have to try going faster now. We shall have to try going faster tomorrow. You lie down now, and I will keep watch for what is left of the night. I wish I could lay my hands on the wretch. We might make him useful. But if I cannot, we shall have to try and lose him. He is very dangerous. Quite apart from murder by night on his own account, he may put any enemy that is about on our track. The night passed without Gollum showing up as so much as a shadow again. After that, the company kept a sharp lookout, but they saw no more of Gollum while the voyage lasted. As if he was still following. He was very wary and cunning. At Aragorn's bidding, they paddled now for long spells, and the blankets went swiftly by. But they saw little of the country, for they journeyed mostly by night and twilight, wrestling by the day, and lying as hidden as the land allowed, in which the time passed without event until the seventh day. The weather was still grey and overcast, with wind from the east. But as evening drew into night and sky was westward cleared, and pools of faint light, yellow and pale green, opened the undershores of cloud, there the white rind of the moon could be seen glimmering in the remote lakes. Sam looked at it and puckered his brows. The next day the country on either side began to change rapidly. The banks began to rise and grow stony. Soon they were passing through a hilly, rocky land, and on both shores there were steep slopes buried in deep breaks of thorn and sloe, tangled with brambles and creepers. Behind them stood low, crumbling cliffs and chimneys of grey withered stone dark with ivy, and beyond these, again, there rose high ridges crowned the wind with their firs. They were drawing near to the grey hill of the Unrun Mool, the southern march of Wilderland. There were many birds about the cliffs and the rock chimneys, and all the day high in the air flocks of birds had been circling, black against the pale sky. As they lay in their camp that day, Aragorn watched the flights doubtfully, wondering if Gollum had been doing some mischief, and the news of their voyage was now moving in the wilderness. Later, as the sun was setting and the company was stirring and getting ready to start again, he descried a dark spot against the fading light, a great bird high and far off, now wheeling, now flying, on slowly southwards. "What is that, Legolas?" he asked, pointing down to the northern sky. "Yes, it is, as I think, an eagle." "Yes," said Legolas. "It is an eagle, a hunting eagle. I wonder what that forebodies. It is far from the mountains." "We will not start until it is fully dark," said Aragorn. The 8th night of their journey came. It was silent and windless. The great east wind had passed away. The thin crescent of the moon had fallen early into the pale sunset. But the sky was clear above, and though far away the south there were great ranges of cloud that still shone faintly in the west, stars glinted bright. "Come," said Aragorn, "we will venture one more journey by night. We are coming to reaches of the river that I do not know well, for I have never journeyed by water of these parts before, not between here and rapids of Sarn Gibber. But if I am right in my reckoning, those are still many miles ahead. Still, there are dangerous places even before we come there, rocks and stony eyots in the stream. We must keep a sharp watch, and not try to paddle swiftly." To Sam, in the leading boat, was given the task of watchman. He lay forward, peering into the gloom. The night grew dark, but the stars above were strangely bright, and there was a glimmer of the face of the earth. It was close on midnight, and they had been drifting for some while, heartily using the paddles. Then suddenly Sam cried out. Only a few yards ahead, dark shapes loomed up in the stream, and when he heard the swirl of racing water, there was a swift current which swung left towards the eastern shore. Where the channel was clear. As they swept aside, the travelers could see, now very close, the pale foam of the river lashing against sharp rocks that were thrust out into the far stream like a bridge of teeth. The boats were all huddled together. "Hoy there, Aragorn!" shouted Boromir, as his boat bumped right into the leader. "This is madness. We cannot dare the rapids by night." But no boat can live in Sargurn-Gerbi, be it night or day." "Back, back!" cried Aragorn. Turn if you can." He drove his paddle into the water, trying to hold the boat and bring it round. "I am out of the reckoning," he said to Frodo. I am out of my reckonings," he said to Frodo, "and did not know that we had come so far. Anduin flows faster than I thought. Sargurn-Gerbi must be close at hand already." With great efforts they checked the boats and slowly brought them about, but at first they could only make small headway against the current, and all the time they were carried nearer and nearer to the eastern bank. Now dark and ominous it loomed up in the night. "All together, paddle!" shouted Boromir. "Paddle, or we shall be driven on the shoals." Even as he spoke, Frodo felt the keel beneath him grate upon stone. At that moment there was a twang of bowstrings. Several arrows whistled before them, and some fell among them. One smote Frodo between the shoulders, and he lurched forward with a cry, letting go of his paddle. But the arrow fell back, foiled by his hidden coat of mail. Another passed through Aragorn's hood, and a third stood fast in the gunwale of the second boat, close to Merry's hand. Sam thought he could glimpse black figures running to and fro upon the long, shingled banks that lay under the eastern shore. They seemed very near. "Yarch," said Legolas, falling to his own tongue. "Arks!" cried Gimli. "Gollum's doing, I'll be bound," said Sam to Frodo. "And a nice place to choose to. The river seems set on taking us right into their arms. Damn. Bottom of page 402. That was day 77. See y'all day 78. Let's go.